Hey, what's going on? So, Crimson Desert just got a pretty meaningful update, and this one feels less like a tiny cleanup patch and more like the developers finally stepping in and saying, all right, we hear you, let's make this feel better to play. The patch was made available on PlayStation first, with Xbox, Epic Games Store, and Mac App Store getting it later. And honestly, that is probably the first thing most players are going to notice. The control changes. The general response speed has been improved, jump inputs feel more responsive, and aiming now behaves better by targeting the center of the screen when you're using a lantern or when you are unarmed. The equipment quick slot has been improved too, so selecting the equipment you already have equipped will now stow it instead of just awkwardly leaving you there, which sounds like a small thing until you are actually playing and realize how much smoother that makes the whole flow feel. The main menu UI was also made more responsive, and an intermittent issue where it would not open at all has been fixed. For keyboard and mouse players, this update is especially important because movement responsiveness was improved. New shortcuts were added for inventory, skills, journal, and map, and the key guide in the bottom right corner now updates properly when using guard or aim. On top of that, side button 1 and side button 2 now have default options for guard, aim, and evade, and movement input now stays active while using Axiom Force. That is the kind of change that can make the game feel dramatically more natural in your hands. The quest fixes are also worth talking about because they solve some of those annoying moments where progress can get weird for no good reason. In Chapter 2's Reunion, the cat will no longer randomly stop leading the way. In Chapter 4's Mysterious Pot, the symbol now pauses briefly at the correct spot while repairing the ancient generator, which should make that sequence easier to read. Ternali's request has been fixed too, so it will not fail just because a Becker shield that was already refined gets refined again. There is also a better notification now for situations where crime status blocks a quest from progressing, which is one of those fixes that saves you from guessing what went wrong. These kinds of changes may not sound dramatic at first, but in a game like this, quest flow matters a lot, and removing those weird blockers goes a long way toward making the adventure feel smoother and less frustrating. There is also a big chunk of this update aimed at making the world itself feel less clunky and more rewarding to move through. More Abyss Nexuses were added across Pywell, so teleporting around is easier, and private storage has been added in both Hernan's initial temporary lodgings and Howling Hill Camp, so you can stash inventory items in more convenient places. Knowledge acquisition has been sped up, skill observation only needs to happen once before a skill can be used, and Force Palm now comes earlier in the game. Logging was made faster too, because trees now get chopped with basic swings without needing that extra aiming step first. And the number of hits needed to log trees was reduced. A bunch of exploration and gathering systems were tightened up as well, including automatic discovery for ore veins and collectibles when you are within range, better visibility for knowledge-related items, and improved visibility for Skybridge alignment devices, Axiom Force circuit boards, and other interactable pieces. Even the Lantern and Vigiane got attention, with the Lantern's clue detection range increased, and Vigiane now equipping automatically after reading memory fragments. That all points to a very clear goal: less fiddling, more playing. Combat and boss encounters got their own round of tuning as well. Some enemies and bosses had their health and attack reduced, blocking now drains less stamina. Ambush encounters on the way to the Reed Devil boss stage have been toned down, and Kirish the Slayer has had certain attack patterns adjusted. Successful parries now build the boss stun gauge more effectively, and boss weakness effects will show even if you have not learned the specific knowledge yet. There were also fixes for a few combat bugs, like comrades lingering when you enter a boss fight, fire arrows failing to ignite enemies properly, certain bosses behaving strangely in specific situations, and the blinding flash weakness not applying the way it should in some cases. On top of that, boss fight visuals and messaging were cleaned up, which should make those encounters feel less chaotic and a bit more readable. A lot of the smaller changes are the kind you may not notice immediately, but they still shape the overall experience in a pretty meaningful way. Food and ingredients now restore more health, and new food was added to the Hernan Tavern. Restorative items sold by Carl at Howling Hill Camp were also slashed from 10 silver to 1 silver, which is a pretty generous adjustment. Pet looting has been fixed under certain conditions. Some items in the Witch's Shop now reset daily, and bismuth ore has been reworked so it can be mined normally with a pickaxe instead of needing lightning damage attack.